Inside Story Uganda, real source of political updates.
The nitty-gritty of the bill and its implications across the IO. Joining me tonight is Honorable Semuju Ibrahim Nganda, Member of Parliament, Kira Municipality, and Secretary General of the PFF, together with Mr. Charles Ouma, Deputy Solicitor General, Honorable Chris Baryomusi, Minister of Information and National Guidance, and the outgoing Lord Mayor and President of the PFF, Honorable Erias Lukwago, will also be joined by a member of civil society, Mr. Job Keija, to share their perspective. Good to have you all, and a very good evening.
Thank you.
Honorable Semuju, I know you have a knack for reading deep into this bill, rather into matters of national interest. How much have you grasped about this bill, and what's your take on what it presents?
I think if you want to understand legislation bills, you don't stop at the content. The intention is very important. Because even when a bill doesn't say something, it becomes just a framework to deal with a particular issue. I remember when the Public Order Management Now Act came, the movers of the bill, that time I think one of the main promoters was Kale Kayihura, was that we want to regulate public meetings, just regulation. But they started using the law to say, now we must be the one to allow a rally to take place or not. So the content of the bill, what is written in the bill, sometimes may not go as far as revealing the intention of those who are behind the bill, because the content will never cover the full intention. It's just a framework. It's just a shield. But this bill deals with the movement of money, mainly.
Foreign funding.
Yes. We did a law on money laundering. We did a number of legislation regarding movement of money, financing of terrorism, and so on and so forth. So there was no need to do another law. But I think this bill comes to deal with politics. Mr. Museveni, because he controls the means of violence, his regime survives on money and violence. In the last election, I have spoken to some NRM friends. They tell me because he keeps asking, these fellows who have no money, how come they are sustaining a campaign? How come they are doing this and this? And then his handlers will tell him, no, they are still receiving money from outside. I remember each time we had either protests in Kampala, Museveni and his people, and so on and so forth. So this bill seeks to achieve the same things, that how do I stop people who are opposed to my administration from accessing money? How do I stop? Because they think the opposition is sponsored by the outside. But also you have a growing number of Ugandans. You go to Europe, you go to the Middle East, you go to Asia, who are interested in what takes place in Uganda. I was in South Sudan. I was surprised that in the market in South Sudan, you had Ugandans who were raising money monthly and they send back to their political parties. It was, it is. And it's not that they don't know. So they will want to stop everybody. And that's why Ugandans are also, because even when you look at I think now remittances by Ugandans who are outside is at 1.7, and the money from tourism is at about 1.6 trillion. So the money they send, you will never know whether it comes to help their political parties. So you now want people who are sending money to be registered. and those who are receiving. So that's why the law now must establish a mechanism of, if you're a bank and you want
in essence, do you want to suggest that the state is so paranoid at this time?
No, because you see, Museveni, and I don't even want to accuse the state, he must be the source of money for everything. You are the one who must give MPs, give the clergy, give traditional leaders, give sex workers in Mbale, give everybody. So in Uganda, there must not be any other person giving money to anyone. But you also hear sometimes wrongly that these people have received money from here and there. There are Ugandans from outside, they raise money and send it to... So you must stop them. So that's why you want to classify Ugandans now as foreigners, and you want to criminalize the movement of money in this century.
Mr. Charles Ouma, you're part of the drafting in this. Share with us an overview on what this law or this bill in its current form means to the country and what it seeks to cure.
Thank you, moderator. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, viewers. I'll give some historical context to matters to do with the bill before us. And I'm going to flash to the United States of America. In 1796, George Washington, the then president of the United States of America, just before he left power, made a clarion call to the American people to be wary of foreign interests in the affairs of the United States of America. He actually referred to them as tools and dupes and said, beware. They may be interested in the affairs of the United States of America for wrong reasons. In 1852, the Congress of the United States of America, that is jointly, House of Representatives and the Senate, made a joint resolution and said that we should, as an American people, be wary of the insidious wiles of foreign interference and foreign elements. What that triggered later on down the line, after about 1933 or so, was the enactment of the Foreign Agents Registration Act, which has been amended over time. This, I draw your attention, is really a geopolitical and policy question. In 1965, the Lion of Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew, gave an anecdote while being interviewed by the some British and American journalists of an experience he had. And he narrated the story of how some foreign forces within America tried to bribe a special branch officer of the Singapore government to facilitate and avail information about the Singapore government. And this gentleman refused to take that bribe. He then reported that to his chief, who in turn reported to Lee Kuan Yew. The option of the government of Singapore at the time was whether to prosecute him or not.
Fast forward here.
Yes. But he did not. A promise was given to the Singapore government. Yeah. I'm going to give you a background. $100 million offered to the Singapore government and $10 million to Lee Kuan Yew to let it lie low. What am I trying to say here is that this is a geopolitical issue. It's a very sensitive matter. It is not akin only the Republic of Uganda. It is all over the world. There's a plethora of nations that have come up with similar laws. So this particular law is basically to take care of the interests of Uganda, the sovereignty of Uganda, and Uganda's interests going forward as a nation.
Have you tried to digest or take in the views voices from Uganda Law Society, from the bankers, from activists, from the opposition. There are reservations about this particular bill.
Yes, we have. Some of them have been gracious enough to formally communicate their position. And we take cognizance that matters legislation will never ordinarily generate unanimity. And that means we welcome all the views that come from different actors and stakeholders. These views are recognized, they are appreciated. Actually, some of the recommendations may enhance the final enactment of the law if Parliament eventually considers it. A number of them have declared they will actually participate in the public discussion before Parliament on this matter and share the same views. So we recognize there are various views about matter. It's also an emotive issue, but one thing I would like to appreciate is society has been given an opportunity to discuss it.
In a matter of weeks, it's been 2 weeks.
Well,
what explains the haste?
I do not control speed of legislation processes, but the question maybe we should ask is, why not? Is there any particular time at which legislation should be introduced in Parliament? Is there a particular speed at which legislation should be passed? I don't know. I'll leave that to the politicians.
Whose sovereignty are you protecting?
You and me.
When the players, the people who would be the beneficiaries of this, are opposed.
Well, that is why I think we have a legislature, a parliament. Parliament is constituted by representatives of the citizenry. We allow the citizenry through their representatives to debate these matters. Eventually, if it's rejected, so be it. If it's welcomed, we'll take it with grace too. Thank you.
Thank you. Lord Mayor, from a legal and political perspective, what does this law, this bill, mean to the country?
I'll start with the legal perspective. And I'll tell you, without any fear of contradiction, and with all due respect to my brother here, Charles Ouma, and those who authored it, it's the most ridiculous, hopeless, useless, and bogus piece of legislation.
That's harsh.
I'm telling you. And I will justify my statement. Of course, we have had a number of, or a litany of useless legislations. But this one goes to the root of the Constitution, the cornerstone of the constitutional order. That is the sovereignty of the people. And that's where it is purportedly anchored on Article 1 of the Constitution. But they are seeking to vulgarize it.
Yeah, but it's
they are distorting it.
It's baptized protection of sovereignty.
Go to Part 2, protection of Part 2 in the preamble of the memorandum, and read what it says. And I will explain it to you as an expert. Part 2.
This part provides for protection of the sovereignty of Uganda by prohibiting the involvement of a person in any activity that promotes the interests of a foreigner against the interests of Uganda. Clause 5. Further, the part prohibits any person from performing the functions and services for which government is responsible, specified in the 6th schedule of the Constitution, unless with the approval of cabinet.
You see, you posed a very fundamental question. Whose sovereignty are you protecting? Part 2, they are talking about sovereignty of Uganda, not sovereignty of the people. And this is important. It's critical. Sovereignty of the country. Yet the foundation of the Constitution is sovereignty of the people. Yes, in objects clause somewhere they're talking about sovereignty, but it's vulgarized.
Maybe this is a drafting error.
No. They deliberately made it. They said protection of the sovereignty of Uganda or the interests of Uganda, by the way, which are not defined, as against foreign interests. Even foreign interests are not defined.
But the bottom line here is they are talking of protecting the sovereignty of Uganda, which is a negation of Article 1. Sovereignty of this country resides in the people. You cannot talk of sovereignty of Uganda. And when you are talking about sovereignty of Uganda, of the people, you look at all the dynamics across board, not only foreign interests, even domestic dynamics. Day in, day out, the sovereignty of the people is being subverted and abused by local forces here, the Museveni regime here. So you cannot talk about protection of the sovereignty of the people when actually you are having the lenses focusing on foreign interests alone. That's a vulgarization and a distortion of Article 1 of the Constitution. That's where I wanted to start from. But I want to join issue with the Honorable Semuju about the spirit of this law. You see, when you look at the spirit, when you want to understand the spirit of a legislation, you don't necessarily look at the clauses per se. Of course, it's one of the areas that will guide you, but you look at the environment surrounding that bill. He posed the question. You ask, why the haste? And also, you look at all the issues, all the processes surrounding this bill. It tells volumes that it's all about stifling all the sources of funding for voices that are critical to the regime. It's not only political position. All the forces, all the voices critical of the regime, that is the intention, is to stifle them.
Yeah, but when
to
you
starve them of funding. Yes.
When you read, somewhere it says,
yes,
the bill seeks to safeguard Uganda's autonomy and stability. I thought that's critical.
You see, go back to Article 1. Because the legislation must be anchored on particular provisions of the Constitution. When you talk about protection of Uganda's stability, you have a number of legislations to handle that, to cater for that. They are there. And you don't need even to create a department in the Ministry of Internal Affairs for security and stability. There is a department being created there that they are going to register agents of foreign interests. Foreign interests are not defined, by the way. And when you go again to the preamble, they purport to give that list of the activities which are injurious to the interests of Uganda, which are prohibited. And once you indulge in those ones, then you are caught within the ambit of the law.
So is the bill lost in ambiguity or spirit?
Let me add to the description I earlier on gave. Bogus, hopeless, useless, repressive, retrogressive, also vague. It's a vague legislation. In an attempt to disguise their mission, the spirit of the law, they ended up coming up with a legislation, a piece of legislation, which is vague, completely vague. You cannot tell what a foreign interest is. Actually, it's not defined. You have a number of, they are trying to define a foreigner, to include Ugandans residing, domiciled outside the country, to also include foreign companies, foreign corporations, multinational agencies, and whatnot. In the end, they are suggesting that actually all these entities which are international in nature are foreigners, whether in telecommunication, whether in the banking sector, whether they are in the NGO world, as long as you are based elsewhere, and under the company law, you come here and register. Because you are not, they are talking of companies incorporated in foreign jurisdiction. So if you have your company, for example, a bank, I don't want to mention many of them. Indigenous banks are very, very few. Majority are foreign. So if you come and register here, you are not incorporated here, you register here under the Companies Act. you are considered to be a foreign company. Now, whether you're representing foreign interests which are not defined, that's a different matter. But you are considered to be a foreign company. And whoever is working for that company, for that banking institution, must register with the Ministry of Internal Affairs.
There's another clause, F. Any person, institution, or body that the minister may, by statutory instrument, declare to be a foreigner.
Yes, by statutory instrument, the minister is given those discretionary powers to cast the net wide. They can consider any activity, any entity, any person, anyone, and say, now you are also considered to be a foreigner.
Well, Honorable Baryomusi, you realize the bill has had a lot of opposition. Law society, the bankers, civil society, name it. Wouldn't you find it prudent maybe to do more reflection, hold it for now, shelve it, and do more consultation? And besides, is there an existential threat that warrants such a law?
Yes, first of all, a bill by definition is a proposal. It's a proposed law. And what is happening is healthy because government, through the Ministry of Internal Affairs, drafted, was supported by the Solicitor General and Attorney General's chambers, drafted this law. It passed through cabinet. Also, I can say the NRM members who subscribed to the NRM party also discussed it, and then we cleared the ministers, tabled it in the parliament. It was read the first time and sent to a committee. And at that stage of the committee in the parliament, all of us as members of parliament are given copies of a bill when a bill is brought to parliament. So we are expected to do consultations as MPs because we represent Ugandans. And also the committee, while processing the bill, listens to all those who are affected or interested in the bill. And what's going on now in the committee is that they are receiving a memoranda and several interested parties are appearing before the committee to get views. So I don't know why you appear like you have sleepless nights because Ugandans are voicing their concerns about the bill. That is heresy, and that's how legislation happens, so that you get what the rest of Ugandans are saying. And of course, now the committee will process it. Yes, you may have heard voices, but have you carried out a referendum in Uganda to say majority of Ugandans don't want the bill? They are just getting views from bankers, from different categories. And then
would you treat the categories in isolation?
No. I'm saying the committee now is getting comments from different sections of society. And then they evaluate these comments. And then the committee will make a report to Parliament. The committee, for instance, can say maybe there is overwhelming rejection and we propose we put off the bill, or they can propose amendments to the bill to accommodate the concerns being raised, or they can leave it the way it is, so it will again find itself on the floor of Parliament.
What kind of legislation is this to you, in your opinion? Is it good or bad?
Why do you ask a question whose answer you know? I am a member of the cabinet, and this bill has been introduced by government, so it's a government bill. But to add to...
No, Honorable Baryomusi.
Yes.
Do you find this legislation good or bad yourself?
Oh, best. Good, it's a good bill. Why this bill? We are talking of protection of the sovereignty of Ugandans. Okay, the road mayor says Uganda versus Ugandans, those are just semantics. Uganda is not trees, it is Ugandans. Just hold on. So we are talking about protection of the sovereignty. What is sovereignty? Sovereignty is that power that we should have as Ugandans to govern ourselves, to make decisions for ourselves, to be responsible for whatever happens, and to handle self-determination as a country.
Are you
as
indeed
Ugandans.
protecting Ugandans?
Yes.
Or taking away their sovereignty?
No, just hold on. Why are you impatient? So, Uganda, like many other countries, is a country which was colonized. If I can take you back to history, like it was, giving us the historical context. We know, in the case of Uganda, close to 70 years, we're under colonial administration. Colonialists went, and then we went into self-rule, self-governance, independence. But we all know that even when these foreigners went, they went unwillingly. One leg went, another leg remained around here in Africa. And when you look at the power architecture, governance architecture in the world, especially here in Africa, you see foreigners still want to influence what happens in Uganda. So the first question is there a need to protect the sovereignty of Ugandans? My answer would be yes.
Doesn't Uganda get money from foreigners?
Just hold on. That's not the issue. So my first question is there a need to safeguard and protect the sovereignty of Ugandans as a people? My answer is yes. The other question is, are the laws which we have adequate to protect the sovereignty? My answer is no. When you read that bill, it is a section where it talks about the defects in the existing legislative framework. There are gaps which are being filled by coming up with this standalone legislation. Well, there may be misgivings about some of the provisions, and that's why I'm saying it's a proposed law which Ugandans and other interested parties can make comments to. Uganda is not the only country that has this kind of legislation. Many countries, some of which the critics admire, look at USA, you look at UK, look at Australia, and many others, have similar laws to protect the interests, the sovereignty of their own citizens.
Why now?
Why now?
Yes.
Well, you cannot legislate for everything at once. This constitution of ours was promulgated in 1995. And once we identify provisions which are not yet actuated through domestic legislation, we identify them and then we propose laws. And over the years, since 1995, there are many bills which have been brought to Parliament. And now we have looked at the dynamics. Increasingly, this foreign interference with the affairs of countries is also moving in an upward trajectory. We go into politics, you look at how we manage the economy, how we look at the issues of governance, you see these foreign interests coming into our affairs. So, yes, the bill could have come yesterday, it could have come next year, but it is also harmless for the bill to come now, because the reality is there are these foreign interests which are not in favor of our own interests.
Before I bring in Joe, yes, Lord.
So,
yes. You see, he's taking us to a wrong direction.
Which one?
You are saying we are operationalizing Article 1 of the Constitution.
Yes.
Once you are operationalizing it, please don't restrict it for any threats, for any interests. You get it? The threat to the sovereignty of Ugandans, not Uganda as a country, the threat to the sovereignty of Ugandans is both international and domestic. So is there any provision in that bill which addresses domestic threats to the sovereignty of Ugandans to exercise their power to determine their destiny? Is there any provision, any clause?
You are partly right. Sovereignty can be looked at in terms of the intrinsic environment, but also you can have extrinsic or foreign related sovereignty. In this case, we are addressing largely the foreign. The local or the internal sovereignty issues are addressed through other pieces of legislation.
Look at this constitution. Article 1 is specific about the sovereignty of Ugandans, not the sovereignty of Uganda as against foreign interests.
So, Lord Mayor, do you want to suggest that this
one,
bill is offensive to the Constitution?
It's unconstitutional. Actually, this is why I'm saying
it
is bastardizing, it is vulgarizing the provisions of Article 1.
The Constitutional Court is a few meters from here. You can go and challenge it from the Constitutional Court.
Wow.
So you're just giving an opinion. So,
yes,
in a nutshell, I think the people who are mainly criticizing, I mean, civil society and opposition.
Lawyers. Legal brains have come out to challenge this.
Yes, but this is also a legal brain. Do you know this is also a lawyer?
Yeah, but the Uganda Law Society, for instance,
are you saying the Attorney General's chambers and the Solicitor General chambers, the lawyers there have less of brains? Are you saying the government of Uganda, the lawyers within the government have less of brains? No. We are saying there is a point government is making that we must protect the sovereignty. There could be differing opinions on the provisions, the way they have been drafted, and they could be improved.
So the government is threatened?
No, Ugandans are threatened by foreigners wanting to promote activities and behaviors which are against the interests of Ugandans. And that's why, unless we are saying we go back to colonialism, we leave the affairs of Ugandans to foreigners to be in charge. That's what we are saying. And by the way, we are not saying we shall not receive money from outside. We are only saying government will now put on spectacles to look at the money which comes from outside. That's what we are saying. And we are saying if it is civil society receiving money, be transparent and accountable. If it is the political parties and the political actors receiving money from outside, be transparent and accountable. Yeah, but why do you demand accountability from us who are in the government? And you as civil society...
But there are already existing laws.
Just hold on.
Financial
Just
intelligence.
hold on. Why do you demand accountability and transparency from us who are in the government? And you civil society, you political actors who get support from outside, you don't want to be transparent. Why do you want to operate in the dark?
Good to have you and share with us. What is your take on the bill in its current stage and the way it is being processed?
First of all, each time I hear government officials talk about this bill, I get quite worried because it gives me the sense that the lie, that the assertion that has been made that this bill was cleared by cabinet and it was cleared by the caucus was actually a lie. Because every time I hear ministers talk about this bill, it is clear that they don't understand the contents of this bill and even the spirit behind it. The people that cleared it in the NRM caucus in Entebbe, the members of parliament, when we spoke to them, they actually, we took them through the bill clause by clause, from clause 1 to clause 30, and they asked us, so what would you save in this bill? And when we took them through the bill, they actually said there's nothing to save. Now, the point I'm trying to make is that you look at these people, he's the Minister of Information, who should actually understand this bill. The Solicitor General, apparently, this bill was drafted in part with him. But when you ask them questions...
the authors.
Yeah, they are the authors. But when you ask them about this bill, they take you into colonialism. They are telling us stories about USA and other places. They are not addressing the contents of the bill. As Minister of Information, he should actually be in the know that there's a lot of discussion about this bill online, in the diaspora, everywhere, not just by civil society. And that actually is consistent with the lie that was told to the members of the NRM caucus when they were being convinced to pass this bill, that this is a bill when they passed laws like this, what happened is that the relationship between the government and the citizens became one of more like a servant-master relationship, whereby the citizens are the servants and then the governments are the masters. Now, at the passing of those laws, civil society, independent civil society were closed. In Nicaragua, over 1,000 were closed as soon as it was passed. Independent media was decimated. We have had so many, there was an exodus of citizens going into exile, properties of and assets of research entities, universities were confiscated. And even with all those bad things happening in those countries, when you get this bill and compare it to those other countries, you realize that actually Uganda has benchmarked on those countries and made its law even worse. Because of all those laws that I'm talking about, this is the only law that declares its citizen a foreigner because they are staying in another country. Now, of all those countries,
for 3 months plus.
Whether it is 3 months or whatever, but the law doesn't even state how long the period, because it's possible that I can board a plane right now and go to Zimbabwe, and as soon as I reach there, I will actually be declared a foreigner, as per this law. Now, the other thing which is happening is that of all those economies that we are looking at, Uganda is actually the most vulnerable. Now, all those countries faced international isolation. A country like Hungary has been more like a pariah in the EU as we speak. It raised a lot of dust because of passing a law like this, and up to now, it's now like the outlier. It doesn't look like them at all. Those countries have been isolated by international financing institutions, by donors, etc. Uganda is so vulnerable in terms of its economy. As we speak, right now, for our national budget, the projection is that we are going to raise 24 trillion shillings from aid. Over the past years, we've been making such projections, and we've only been able to raise between 3 to 5 trillion. Now, right now, if we are projecting that we are going to raise almost 40% of our budget from aid, and we are introducing such laws, what does that mean? That we are going to face international isolation, and donors are going to run away, because you are closing space for civil society, you are closing space for the media, you're closing space for your religious institutions, you are closing space for your cultural institutions, for your medical professionals, etc. Because this law actually, as is at the moment, it has serious implications for the churches, for the mosques. If you look at churches, a lot of them who are really intervening even in terms of education and health, because you know that some of the best hospitals in this country and health centers are actually run by the churches and mosques. The schools are also run by churches and mosques. Now, these are not running them that way because they are raising money locally. They are raising money from outside. But when this law is passed, those churches, those schools, hospitals must register as agents or foreigners.
Well, we'll take a very short break, and when we return, we'll still be asking whether this is yet another draconian bill that seeks to give government more big brother powers. We'll be back.